Hey out there, Wake Angel 2001 here, and before we get started on anything else, remember to vote in the poll for the top 10 customs that I made last year. The link will, as always, be in the description below. Okay, now, on to the actual subject matter of this video. There is a particular action figure set that was supposed to have come out in October, I believe, which kind of didn't. Well, it appeared online, but for ridiculously marked up prices. Well, after New Year's Day and the holiday season had finally passed, Toy Wiz finally acquiesced and did a price drop, bringing the price down from $25 down to $20. They also had like a little promo code that was an extra $1 off, so it went down to $20. It is, of course, the Sonic Forces 3-pack, which features Zavok and Infinite, two brand new figures made for the Tomy Sonic the Hedgehog line. And also there's a Sonic figure in there. I'm gonna get to that. So yes, is this the actual Holy Grail figure set that it always is? I mean, I waited frickin' 3 months for this thing to appear on retail, and when it never did, I finally bought it at a slight discount price online, which is still more expensive than it would have been in retail, but that's mostly because of shipping. So, let's open up this pack and see the figures inside and see how it goes. So, here it is. Infinite Sonic Zavok, all in one conveniently sized little box that would stack evenly with any other of the 3-packs that have ever been released. It's a pretty no-frills packaging. It's all just various region logos and all the disclaimers on the bottom with all the copyright information, along with an admittedly pretty nice promotional picture of Infinite and Zavok on the back. If it looks a little bit oversaturated here, that's because it's done in this kind of, I don't know, the way it's applied is just very shiny is what I'm trying to get at. So yeah, that's the packaging. It's very bare bones, so let's open it up and get the figures out. So let's start off with the Sonic figure. He is completely and utterly identical to the Sonic figure that we already have. They didn't even change his facial expression like they would sometimes do for the Sonic Boom releases. Yeah, why was he in here? There was no reason for him to be there other than to jack up the price of the 3-pack by another $8. You easily could have just released an Infinite and Zavok 2-pack and people would have been satisfied with that. Or if you're going to put in a third, maybe make Chaos so that you have a new character that's never received a toy before. Or maybe you can put in a Shadow, because we know you're making a Shadow figure, but it hasn't been released yet. This would have been a nice first release. Or, you know, heck, maybe just stick Metal Sonic in there, because you already made a Metal Sonic figure too. Like, anything but another Sonic. This is at least the third release of this exact toy. So with that said and done, there's nothing more to say about him. Alright, let's take a look at Zavok. Now, you could purchase Zavok separately for $8, while Infinite separately was $25, pretty much the entire cost of the 3-pack. So yeah, like, the entire 3-pack's cost goes into Infinite, and Sonic and even Zavok, who's an original figure that's never had a toy before, are still considered to be also-rans of this set. But you know what? He's actually looks a lot like Zavok. He's really well sculpted, and he has a lot of density and heft. This is a solidly built toy. So, yeah, he's a good chunk of plastic. Unfortunately, he has a lot of issues which I really said that this set would have. And that is a really bad pre-assumed pose. Hey, Omega, come in here. Hey, this is Omega from the X-Men toy line. And he is standing in the same pose that Zavok here is at. For the most part. You know, like bent elbows, torso twisted over to the side, locked in a mid-step, you know, like it's kind of it's a nice action pose, but it's kind of hard to get him into anything else. Hold on, like, okay, now that I've illustrated the point, let's get this out of the way. So articulation. His head is on a swivel, which is a bad thing because the way he's so heavily hunched forward, this just means that rather than looking left or right or anything, he just kind of cocks his head side to side. His arms are on universal joints. His shoulders can rotate all around, and the pin disc in there allows him to
get him up and down a bit. But again, you're probably seeing limitations as to the sculpt of his torso. And his legs are on only swivel joints. His back leg can go back that far, and can go forward that far, and his other leg can't go back that far, but it can go up pretty far. Except, look at that. To put his legs into this position meant breaking the paint job. Like, when you actually have to mess up the smoothness of the character's paint to accommodate the limited articulation, you failed somewhere. And anyway, leg articulation is useless because you literally can't get him to stand. I mean, he doesn't look good when he's sitting because he's all cocked over and twisted. You can't get him running. Like, he will literally only stand when his legs are in one position, so there's really no reason for his legs to actually be able to move. That is there. So yeah, that is, that's what we call the curse of the pre-assumed pose. So, Tomy, and you know what, while I'm at it, every other toy company, if you're going to make a figure that is standing in a pre-assumed pose that admittedly looks pretty cool, just make a statue. There's a market for statues. Just make this. Because, like, this looks cool. This doesn't pose, but it looks cool the way it does. And, you know, I'm not holding up to the standard of something that can pose. This is not a statue. This is an action figure. So, you took a pose that would have made a pretty decent statue, but now it's just a really bad action figure. Because as a statue, it fails because the accommodations you made for what articulation he does have break up the paint job. Like this mishap with the hip here shouldn't have happened. And as an action figure, like this is actually worse. Yes, it's worse than the bad guys that Playmates Toys makes for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, I went there. It's actually worse than those pre-assumed poses that can't stand because they're like up on a single toe or something. Like, it's bad. It really is. Like, this had the capability of being a really cool figure, but because you chose to twist his torso around so he's in a mid-step and his arms are posed in such a way that he can basically be like just landing or standing with them more or less at his side, like this is a statue. This is an action figure that wants to be a statue, or a statue that's pretending to be an action figure, but it's not pulling off either well enough. Still, like I said, the elements that look like Zavok really do look like Zavok. And if they had like twisted the torso, if they kept the torso straight, put the legs more symmetrical so he's not all twisted and leaning over, then this actually could have been really good. Like, you almost did it, but you got ahead of yourselves, Tomy. Like, if you want to make a Zavok statue, make a Zavok statue. But you're making a Zavok action figure. So give us a freaking Zavok action figure. Alright, I've teased you guys long enough. Let's go on ahead to the reason why most people would have ever wanted this set. The pain persists. I can't resist. That's what it takes to be infinite. Is what I'd like to say about this action figure, but he sucks. This is awful. Remember everything I said about Zavok's pre-assumed pose? ×2 for this guy. Look at this. He looks like he's shrugging his shoulders. And because he has no wrist swivels, the pin discs on his shoulders are pretty much useless. Like, I guess you can have him like doing Michael Jackson dances where he's grabbing his crotch, like, ooh! But really, unless you want to do a booga booga booga, like, this thing is almost useless for any kind of posing. And then look at these legs. Like, these hilariously undersized feet are one thing. Let's bring up Sonic's foot for comparison. Like holy crap. Like, Like, no, we know for a fact that your toe shouldn't. He should not have his toe constantly curled upwards. Like, this is just a pointy part of the shoe to make it look a little more menacing. Like, yeah, technically speaking, that makes the tip of his foot, but his toes should be here. That means his feet are freaking tiny. It's ridiculous. So yeah, the feet are ridiculously undersized, and then look at the pathetic leg placement. That right foot is so far up on his tippy toe that it doesn't even, like look, when you bring it forward, it looks like he's playing the freaking hokey pokey. You put your left foot in, you take your left foot out, put your left foot in, and you shake it all about. That's just awful. And then that's it. Universal shoulders and hip swivels. The tail, I thought, would at least rotate, but it doesn't. The head has absolutely no movement. And, that's it. Holy crap, is this a hugely underwhelming figure? He even looks fat. His torso's too big, his shoulders are too broad, his arms are too fat and ungainly, and yeah, they look too long too. The proportions are weird. The pre-assumed pose limits whatever you could do with him. He lacks articulation even compared to other Tomy figures. Really? This can sell on its own for as much as the entire 3-pack put together, usually. No! This is just... ugh. I am hugely disappointed. Let's go over what positives there are. That's a pretty good sculpt of the Infinite's mask. Yeah, look at that. Got a nice eye. Although they screwed up the paint job, these are supposed to be concentric circles, but they don't even go... They don't disappear into the edge of the ear like that. Same on this side, no, that's not how that looks. It's not how that's supposed to look. Although at least they rendered his hair. I mean, I couldn't sculpt his hair like this. I just, this is way too complex a shape for me to replicate with hand sculpting. So, they got that. That's one thing that they could do that I couldn't. And Infinite scarf for his shoulder fur, whatever that's meant to be. They have it rendered all the way around. Although it seems that they completely sacrifice any kind of neck articulation to accommodate it. I don't know, when I didn't do this much of a detail sculpt, but that was because I wanted to preserve neck articulation. I favored articulation over, this part of the look because it's such a minor part. And look at that Phantom Ruby. It doesn't even stick out. See? Look at that. It's just a part of his chest. If it wasn't for that sculpt line, I would honestly think that all they did was paint his chest. That's not what the Phantom Ruby looked like. The Phantom Ruby is a protrusion that comes out of his chest. It's a gemstone that has been unnaturally embedded within his torso. That's supposed to be part of his look, his gimmick. So, and then they use a really flat gray for the mask. The mask is supposed to be a really reflective silver. This mask doesn't look impressive. It looks dull. So, bad pre-assumed stance, tiny ridiculous feet, poor articulation even in relation to the Tomy line. And that head sculpt is really all he has going for him. That's it. This isn't even a good figure. Tomy has done so much better. In fact, you know what? Every single figure that Tomy ever made before they started pre-assumed poses are better. Tomy, stop trying to do pre-assumed poses because it's completely messing you up. It's messing up your proportions, it's messing up your play value, it's messing up the displayability, it's messing up everything. So, yeah, I can completely come down on this figure I can basically come down on this entire set based solely on the problems of the pre-assumed poses of the figures. Sorry, Tomy, we didn't like the poses you put them in. And because of the poses you put them in, we can't put them into other poses that we like better. Therefore, you have failed. You have made a couple of bad statues. That's what you've done. If anybody ever wondered, will Wake Angel 2001 ever say anything negative about the Sonic action figure line or about Sonic Forces? He always seems so defensive of everything from it. Like, nope, this is my negativity. These suck. Don't bother. Maybe if you find these on a really, really deep clearance, maybe you can get them, but they're not worth it for what they are. Like, seriously, screw it.